the land of the Sawis, fierce tribal people who killed each other for generations and generations. But there was also a tradition among them of the peace child, where they'd take a child, a baby from one tribe, and give to the other tribe. And they would give another baby to the other tribe. But does it work? They live in a place called Irian Jaya, tens of thousands of mountains and valleys and jungles, each little village doing their own thing, having their own language, a very complicated language nobody understood. But they would fight each other for territory, for wives, for all the wrong ways of life. And they were living in all these jungle, little streams and rivers, between especially two places called Kamur and Hanam that hated each other and would fight all the time for many, many hundreds and thousands of years. They lived along the great river Kronko that meandered and wound its way all through the jungles of the great Irian Jaya. But they had a very evil tradition called Tui Asonai Man, which is, I will feed you and feed you and feed you until you're fat, and then I'll slaughter you. Ah, it's so evil. And this day, Yai was on his boat, his great canoe. He knew he was a great man because he had killed many, many. There were his necklaces to remind others of the great warrior that he is. He had killed many crocodiles, dogs, marsupials like kangaroo types of animals, and all kinds of course, parrots and cockatoos and things like that, and monkeys even. And all these were shown on his necklaces. What was most significant was on his elbow. There were 5 bands that showed that he had killed 5 people and eaten 3 of them, chopped off their heads. And this was the evil, but he thought, a great Yai. And Yai thought very highly of himself. He said, I am the greatest, but not enough people know that I am the greatest. I will be the greatest hero in all of the legends. I am going to go and make an alliance, because 3 days ago I met them and we started talking about it. And now I am going to go and make this alliance, because if I make an alliance, and I will be very, very honored, I will be glorified, and I will become like the hero, and then I will have 5 wives. I only have 2, and one of them just died. She was eaten away by yaws, this terrible disease that eats away at your body and wastes away. So I only have 1 wife now. I want 4 more, and I will be the great Yai. And he remembered 3 days ago, he had met Cowan. Cowan had shouted at him from afar, Yai, 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 I'm your cousin. I'm your cousin. I'm your cousin. Don't worry, don't worry. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. And Yai was a bit nervous, because at that time, they were at war with each other. And when he saw Cowan, he wasn't sure, because Cowan was with 4 other warriors together. But Cowan convinced him, I am your cousin. I'm related to your mother's side, and I want to make this deal with you. This will be a great deal for you and for me. We will become heroes. We'll have an alliance together, and with this alliance, we'll be able to fight the Asmats and the Kayagas, and we will be a great tribe together. And you and I will have the honor, and we'll have our 5 wives too. So, you make this deal with me. Yai was very excited. His heart started beating. This is a chance I've been waiting for many, many years. But is this a trap? Is this like Tui Azanai Man? Or is it a good deal? What do I do? What do I do? Wait. How about this? You come to our village first, and we entertain you, and then I'll go to your village. And Cowan said, that's a good idea, but it's kind of getting dark. And we've been after this wild boar. In fact, we have the blood trail, and we're going to be with him very quickly, and we'll catch him. And when we catch him, we'll get him. And our wives are waiting for us. back at the village, and we have to go back soon. So it's okay. You come. Plus, what about this? Here is a snatch of my hair. And this is a token. Remember that. When you get this, it is a token of my relationship with you. Plus, when I get that boar, you're going to come and I'm going to give you half the boar's liver. It'll be a great treasure for you. Plus, when you come, I personally am going to defend you. Nobody is going to harm you because I will be your guarantor. And so Yai kept thinking in his heart. His heart was racing away, beating. This is my chance. I better get it. If I don't get it, he'll give it to someone else. And the other person will be the hero. And he will get the 5 wives. I want to be the hero. So he said, I will go. I am Yai. I will boldly go to visit you. And now he was really on that trip. 3 days later, he was boldly on that trip. He was getting closer and closer to this new territory for him, the Hainam village. And as he took his boat into the narrow little stream that goes into the Hainam village, he saw his welcome, a skull, a welcome skull, with eyes all red, with red seeds welcoming him, a dead kayaga that they had slaughtered. And as his boat came in, there was a team of warriors waiting for him, all looking kind of not very friendly. But suddenly, Kayaga came up. And Kayaga showed up at the riverfront. And he said, this is my friend. I personally invited him. He is my cousin. And no one will touch him over my dead body. I am protecting him. And so Yai was a bit relieved. So he started going up towards the village. And then as he started going up, there's a whole set of warriors waiting for him. He was a bold man. But even then, he was a bit nervous. He was saying, is this right? Is this a trap? But he walked in there. And they sat down in that great man house. 20 men, leaders of the whole tribal village there. And they sat down as man to man. And they talked about different things. But what was best was, after he sat down, quickly they served this delicious grubs. Whoa, these sago grubs that were just juicy, delicious, and when he ate them, he could feel it spurt in his mouth. Ah, great stuff. Oh, I know I'm appreciated. I know they love me to serve me this great grubs, toasted in such a wonderful way. And then half the liver of the boar. Whoa, that's wonderful. He wanted to eat it right away, but he said, wait, maybe I just should take it home and save it and share it with my family and let them know I came back with this wild boar, half a liver that's from our friends, the Hainam village. And so he got really excited. And then he started talking about his exploits, how wonderful he was, how many he had killed, how many animals he had killed, and all the wonderful things that he had done. And all the others sat there and nodded their heads and said, you're wonderful, you're great. And so at the end, he started to leave. He said, it's getting late, I better go home now. So he gathered the things, took his pig liver, and he was just about to leave when he thought, oh, maybe it's Tui Asonai Man. Maybe they're going to kill me now. But I'm a brave man. I will be bold. I'll walk out with my shoulders straight. But he was thinking, something might happen. But nothing happened. So when he got home, he went on back to his village, and he stood up among the entire village, and he gave a yeah! I am Yai, I've done it, I am the hero. I am the one that has accomplished this alliance, and we will have this great alliance, and together we will be strong. And everybody admired him for his strength and courage. And so, for 10 times, He went over. 1, 2, 3, 9, 10 times he went over, and it was all nothing happened. It was just safe. They were always complimenting him, giving him gifts, giving him stuff. Oh, he was so happy. He said, finally, I've made it, I've done it. And the last time he went, he said, this is it. I'm going to seal the deal. I'm going to go there and we'll sign this agreement and we will get together and they will come to the great Bism dance. And at the dance at our village, we'll all have a whole night of great dancing, great singing, and we will get all drunk with that sago wine, and we'll be friends and we'll be one family. And so they said, yes, it's wonderful. Why don't you sit down and you do this. There are 12 days until the dance, and 12 of our greatest warriors will go with you. And each day, please tie 1 knot. Each knot will be a day. So tie 12 knots so we can count, and every day we'll wait to come to you. So as he sat there, among all the tribal people, he began to put his knots in. And 1 knot after another knot. What he didn't know was that some of the tribal people began moving a little bit away from him. One of them put his hands underneath him. Another one put his hands a little bit on the shelf. Cowan kept talking to him, complimenting him how a great man he is, and they started talking. But he sensed that there was a little bit funny something happening in the air. It seemed a little darker, a little bit quieter than he would imagine. And then he didn't know what he was supposed to do, but he thought maybe I should take a look, and time's up. Sorry, see you tomorrow. Time's up. As Yai sat on the ground there, tying that fateful knot there, tying those knots, he suddenly realized that around him, everything was getting a little bit too quiet. And sure enough, his hosts were moving in the back there. They were kind of inching a little bit away. One of them started moving towards the side and started raising a spear there. Another one started moving to the back, taking out another spear. Another one reached out from the shelves and came up with another spear. Then all of a sudden, they all stared him in the face as he looked up, and his eyes got bigger and bigger. And he shouted out, Cowan, aren't you supposed to save me? And Cowan said, ha, this is the Tui Asanaiman. You know that story, and you are trapped now. And so all those eyes that were looking at him were fierce, evil, terrible eyes that were looking at him, and they were gloating, and they were smarting. They were just so happy to see him so scared. And they finished him off, and they ate him. This is a sad situation in that land there, where so many people die because of such treachery. It's so evil, and so many people have suffered through all the generations. John Richardson was in Prairie Bible School. In the Bible school, he heard this great message from an evangelist, a preacher who had gone to visit these lands and told about these lands far, far away, thousands of miles away, in the land of Irian Jaya. New Guinea was another name for it. Tens of thousands of mountains, tens of thousands of valleys, tens of thousands of little tribes that were fighting each other, and they had never heard the gospel. They had never heard about love. They had never heard about love your neighbor. All they heard about was hate your neighbor, kill them, and revenge. And so Don sat there, and he sat there through this whole message, and he cried in his heart, God, Who would go to these people, these unreached people, so far away? Who would love them? And the answer came back in his heart. God might be sending me, and that I might need to go. Maybe I should go. It's far away, but I should go to reach out to these people and tell them about the love of God so they don't kill each other all the time. And there, in the classroom, was also another person, Carol Soderstrom. And Carol was touched by God too, because she heard the message that only people that we want are people who are strong in the faith, who are willing to experience drudgery and loneliness, and are willing to depend on God totally when they go over there and realize that there's great danger over there. And her heart was touched, and she felt, I need to go too. I need to go. And they met each other in the Prairie Bible School. And they said, we have the same passion, the same vision to go to these lands. And Don had only been a Christian for 3 years. At age 17, he had become a Christian. At age 20, he was now in Bible school. And Kara had grown up in a Christ-loving family. And she had known Jesus since early childhood. And so she said to Don, you go and become a youth minister for a few years. Youth ministers are good training grounds to be missionaries. I will go to be a nurse. I'm going to Cincinnati at the Bethesda Hospital right here in town here. And she finished her nursing school. They got married. And 1 year later, they went off to New Guinea, the land that no one wanted to go to. And so they went over there full of this energy of youth in their 20s. They loved the Lord. They wanted to serve over there. And by that time, they even had a baby. And as they went over the river Cronco and all the mountains, they were in these Missionary Aviation Fellowship planes. They were flying very high and dangerously, sometimes up to 15,000 feet, and they would right go down to sea level. Wow, it was quite a dizzying experience. And the weather was often not too good and very turbulent. The winds were coming. In fact, many of the Missionary Aviation Fellowship people died in such bad weather. But they had to go and scout out the weather, and they had to go scout out the place. And so they went along, and they dropped down to the sea level, down to the river level to see what was going on. And as they went along the river, they could see little villages here and there. And Don's heart was touched. He says, these are the villages I want to go to. And the pilot was flying, and he said, you know, these are savages. They're cannibals. They're headhunters. You know that. Yeah. Even the women are very fierce. The women use their clubs, and they club their enemies. And they also make the men go and fight. And sometimes what they do is they take an enemy captive. And from that enemy captive, they take the skull of the bones and take even the jawbones, and they wear it around their necks as a way of showing that they also are strong too. And they are strong, and they want to be part of this way in which they would kill their neighbors and all the other tribes around there. And Don said in his heart, yes, God, I know all these dangers there. Yes, I know that some people, some missionaries going there are going to lose their lives. In fact, on one of the river bends there, Phil Masters, one of the missionaries that's gone to that area, will be dead in a few years because of 100 arrows that have been shot into him from the natives there. Yes, it's a dangerous land, but God, we're going to go. And so they got in a boat, and they started coursing along the river Cronco, various bends there, and sure enough, it's hot, it's sweltering, it's humid. They were sweating all over, and the flies and mosquitoes, and sometimes torrential rains that came down. That cooled them off, but they had a new problem because now they have to bail out the boat. The boat is now full of water. So this was not an easy trip, but she knew that this was God's purpose to go there. And they looked at their baby, Stephen, only 7 months old baby, 7 months old, and yet he was now going to be a missionary, a 7-month-old missionary. Wow, it was so precious. By the way, this is a real picture that I just got 2 days ago from a relative of theirs. This is a real picture. Stephen, by the way, his grandfather actually was a pastor here for 40 years in Cincinnati. Can you imagine? Wow, so as they went along the river, they saw these waterfalls, these beautiful waterfalls. And they were just remarking, what a beautiful creator we have. Wonderful, God has created beautiful things around this world. And we are here to enjoy that too. And as they were going along the river, the birds started flying out, the geese, the egrets, even the parrots. Oh, it's so beautiful, it's so lovely. And they were just enchanted by it all. And as they went along the river, they could see the eyes of the birds of paradise staring at them. Wow, so pretty. And some of the other birds of paradise had long, long tails, long, beautiful plumes, long feathers. It's so gorgeous as you start looking at all these things that God had created. And on the way, they could see these owls staring at them. Owls. I've seen owls before, they said. In America, we have owls too. But wow, there are owls here too. And then they saw all these dark things up in the tops of trees there, silhouetted against the skyline. All these dark, dark, dark things up there. And then they noticed and realized that these were bats, many of them hanging upside down and flying around there. Oh, didn't know whether to be shocked by it or to be pleasantly surprised by it. But then it went along the river, and there were other little animals here and there. Egg eaters, they're like porcupines, and they had all these sharp quills and spikes that they had in them. And they knew that some of the natives would take these quills and they would poke them through their noses as an ornamental kind of thing. So many things to look at and to appreciate. And there were these frogs that were like giant frogs. And he knew that the natives would eat them. Wow, gorgeous, delicious food. These frog meats. And then all these monkeys up out there. All these different monkeys. Oh, one! Yay! Abu, what are you doing again here? Every vacation Bible school you show up somehow. That's amazing. How did you manage to come up here every time? But you know, Abu, natives here, they eat monkeys. And they like monkey food. I think maybe you shouldn't go with us. You should just go back to the jungle. And along the river, you could see that there was a lot of danger too. Blood-sucking leeches were around. You suck your blood out. And then snakes everywhere. Snakes up in the trees, snakes on the riverbed, snakes along the riverside. Whoa. And crocodiles. And the natives told Carol, don't put your hand out there too far and watch it, because you might lose your hand. This was a reminder to them that the jungle might be beautiful, but there's treachery, brutality, evil lurking behind there. And they passed by some jungle villages, and they could see the smoke was there. And so they thought, wow, good, let's go. And they contact with them. So they started to go inside the village, and they started to see what's going on there. There's smoke, but there are no people. They're all gone. What happened to the people? Why are there no people here? And so village after village, it turns out that the villagers are really smart. And when they hear that there are foreigners coming here, they immediately evacuate. There's like a drill. Suddenly, the whole village disappears. They all climb right down from the tall, tall places, and then they scurry away, and they have their children on their back or their babies in their hands, and they throw it to other people, and they run, and they run and hide, and they try to get outside of the way because they know that there might be danger. Or some of them be very smart, and they would climb up to the top of trees, and on the top of trees they would kind of watch and see what's going on there. But others, because they've been frightened before, especially sometimes when these new planes are flying over, they realize that there's a new creature up there, What is this creature? Is it a dragon? Is it a monster? What is this thing? So they're really scared. So they jump right into the bushes there. And other times they jump right into the thorns there. And the reason they jump into the thorns is because they had heard a rumor, a story, that the thorns are bad for the dragons. And maybe so, because these thorns will poke holes in the tires, maybe. So they jump themselves in there, and by the time they jump inside there, they're full of thorns themselves. So they spend the next few days pulling out the thorns from them. So it's pretty bad. But today, he can't find them. Don tried very hard to find them. And then he suddenly remembered, wait. I have things in my boat that I could use to exchange and trade with them. Like razors. They love razors. They've never seen a razor before. A razor could be used this way. And you've heard stories that when people show the first razor, everybody says, wow, what's that? What's that? They've never seen a razor. It's so beautiful. Or even fish hooks. Like when people go there and they find the first natives that have never seen a fish hook, they try to teach them how to hook a fish. A hook. Ah, they're so amazed. Or when they show them some matches. What are those? What are those things? They've never seen a match. They have to create a fire in a very difficult way. But whoa, what's that? They're so amazed to see. Is that real fire? What is that? So it's just such a great thing. And he says, I got this already. Maybe if I flash some of these things up or something. As he was just thinking about it, suddenly, around the turn of the river, came 6 boats. And he was a bit shocked, but they were even more shocked. They were all kind of like, what is this? These monster people, these people that look so white, what are they? And you could see that they had their paddles and their spears in their hands, but they were shaking and shaking, so much that the whole boats were started shaking. And so it was like a tremble, and then some of them just jumped out because they couldn't stand it anymore. So they ran away. And so Don and Carol and the other natives on the boats kind of looked at each other and said, what do we do now? They didn't have long time to think because suddenly 20 boats showed up. And now these 20 boats came closer and closer and closer. And one of the natives called out, Kanahari, ooh, Kanahari, ooh. And somehow that seemed to calm them a little bit, but like a welcome thing. So they started getting a little closer and closer and closer. But everybody was nervous. Nobody knew what the other people were thinking about. And then those natives looked at Don a little more closely, and they said, what kind of color is that? That's so pale, so white. What kind of color is that? And then looked more closely, and he said, there's a woman there. Oh, and a baby there. Oh, so maybe they're human. Maybe they're not monsters after all. And Don and Carol looked in the far end there. There seemed to be a little hut there. Must be the chief's hut. And there were 2 people there. Must be the chief and his wife. And they were staring at them. And by this time, 200 warriors were standing by the riverside. 200 warriors staring at them. Some did not look that friendly. Some looked like okay. But nobody was really smiling. They were just watching them. And so, as the boat got closer and closer and closer, and closer to the side of the river, near the village, suddenly they heard a man on the side there. And he looked like some kind of big guy. Stood up on the hill there. And he gave this earth-curdling shout. Come on! And as he said that, then all the people started moving closer and closer and closer, and they crowded around him, a sea of human bodies, all naked and glistening, and all surrounding them. And oh, sorry, time's up. Sorry, time's up. See you tomorrow, okay? Yeah. the lone warrior on the little hill there shouted, "Ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on." And everybody started chanting, "Ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on, ha hop, come on." And they all started moving. All the people from inside the villages came out, the warriors came closer, the boats came closer, everybody started crowding around. Don and Carol and Stephen, and they were feeding all the pressure of the people coming by here. Everybody was just naked, glistening, just shiny, and then coming close to them. And as they came closer, they started to touch them, like, "Oh, this is, wow, what a skin, what a skin." And they touched the baby. And they were all like, all around her. And they was like, God, I hope it's going to be all right. And then they were able to go through and push their way through. And slowly, 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 they made their way up onto the beach. And it was just a great welcome. They were just welcoming them. They were not trying to harm them or anything. It was just a warm welcome of "Ha hop, come on," which is their welcome sign, basically. And as they started moving around, moving up into the beach, they were able to find a home that they could stay there. So they began to go into the home there. And in that home there, as they were just trying to settle down and everything, the sun started setting. As sun started setting, it was so beautiful. And Don and Carol prayed a prayer of thanksgiving to God. God, you brought us here, finally. We're here among the Sawis. And the Sawis have welcomed us to come and live with them. It is so wonderful. God, bless us and help us during this very difficult transition time, we know. And so inside their home, they went inside, and sure enough, in their home, they had to start to set up like mosquito nets, because there were lots of mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes would come at them and so quickly, they got inside a big mosquito net. And then as they were trying to figure out what to do, they said, "Oh, we better light the lantern. It's getting really dark outside." And while they were trying to get everything ready, all the people were around them, and they were all looking in, like seeing what's going on. Everybody was trying to figure out what they were doing. And then they said, "Well, let's put on the lights." So they started to light the fire, and then all of a sudden, wow, the light started coming. It's coming, and it started coming. Oh, and then suddenly everybody left. They all ran away because they said, "Oh, it's some kind of a weird, dragon or some kind of monster," because all the flames were coming out of the house. It seemed like the house was on fire. It was so bright. They had never seen a light so bright. So they all ran away. And that was nice because they all ran away. They could get some rest. And so they rested that night peacefully, thanking God that they were finally here. Early morning, they got up and they said, "Hey, let's get some good breakfast." So they scooped up the cans and took it out, and they started to eat. It was kind of yummy. And as they're eating, all the tribe people came around to see what's going on too. So they see, they're eating brains. The brains. They eat brains. Ooh, they eat brains. Ooh, wow. These are amazing people. And so Don said, "Time for a bath. Early morning, nice and cool. I'm going to go down and take a bath." So he wandered down into the river and was going to take a bath. At that time, everybody started looking too. They're like, what is he doing in there? What are you doing there? So they all watched him as he began to soap himself and take off his shirt. And take off his shirt, it's like, that's pretty white. What is that skin? What is that? So he was starting to soap himself. But then they said, wait. He's laying down a challenge to the river spirit. Look at all the things coming out there. It was the soap suds. It was all the stuff that was coming out. His grease, his body grease, is going out into the river. And it's a challenge to the river spirits, the river gods. Will they be upset? Will they be angry that a new force has come into our area now? But in life that they lived in, was a very interesting life. tall, tall houses, 40 feet high, very tall, up like in the trees. And up there they could see from far to see if the enemy is coming, and they could be safe to get away from the enemies. And it was actually a very nice view. It was a treetop view, basically. And they would be able to climb down those tree houses along the vines, and they had sort of like a little ladder that they had. It was basically a vine with a couple of vines together, and they would climb down, but they were so smart and so good that they sometimes did not even use their fingers. They could just come down with their feet, and they would wobble down, wobble down, wobble down, and there they go, they're on the ground. So very smart people, very good with their hands and feet. Life among the Sawis was very intimate. All the family would live together, and they would love their children, and they would all lie on these mats and nurse their own children, and basically like one big family in each of these homes there. But they spoiled their kids. They let the kids do anything, which was kind of bad because the kids grew up to be kind of very, very naughty. But they didn't have the toys that we have, but they all had other little toys that they had. And one of the toys they had was actually skulls. They would use the skulls, and they didn't respect the dead too much, so they kind of kicked them around like a football kind of thing. And at night, when they slept, sometimes they would kind of just sleep on the skull. That's the kind of life they had. But the place that they lived, one of the things that they had in abundance was the sago tree. The sago tree was a great tree, big and tall, and some very small, all different kinds of sago. And in the sago tree, they actually had a lot of spines, so it was kind of difficult sometimes to get to it. But they learned how to maneuver around it to get to all the sago, because in the sago were these beautiful sago grubs. Oh, those grubs, those worms, they love the sago. So they're full of sago grubs. And when they see a sago, or a sago grub, to them it's like a juicy, juicy hamburger. Ooh, better than a hamburger. So nice, so juicy, so crunchy, so wonderful. Juicy, juicy hamburgers. But the men, they love to go into the sago tree, split it open, and they try to hammer, punch, hammer the pulp. Because inside the pulp, you can actually get that out, and you can eat it later. And they would go on there, and they would stomp on it. Stomp on the pulp. And then they could pour the water on top, and they would start to mix the sago. It becomes something like a flour. Mix. And then they could pour it in the troughs, and the trough would come by, and the water would leak out, and then would be left would be like the sago stuff, like a flour they could make into very nice sago products, like bread and things that later on they could even learn how to even sell them. It was really, really so helpful. It was the one fruit, one thing that they had that was so very valuable and so convenient too. But even the leaves they could use, the big leaves they could use, they could weave it together, and they could use it like a mat, like a cover, or even for the rooftops. Wow, the rooftops were all covered with these huge sago leaves, and the sago protected them from the elements, because sometimes it rains terribly over there, like torrential rain. If you don't have cover, you really have a problem. But one of the things they really like about the sago is the sago food itself can be used to attract the wild boar. The boar, they smell it. Ooh, so good. Sago. So they go for it. And they literally sort of like stuff their head in like a pillow right inside the sago, trying to eat the sago. They love it. So it's like a trap. They trap the head of the boar right into the sago plant. And while the sago plant trap is working, what happens is that there are warriors hidden behind this thicket of vines, of trees, of brushes, all behind that, They're waiting, 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 waiting. And then when they see that wild boar's head is right inside the sago plants and stuck inside there because the food is so good, then he draws out his bow and arrow. And his bow and arrow is huge. You can pull it to the very, very extreme so you can see how the strength would be. And the strength of it allows him to go right over. And that spear or that arrow can go right through the boar, right through the chest, through the heart, through the lungs, and sometimes come out. Wow, these warriors are really good. And then, it's a feast because they get the wild boar, the entire boar, and they can carry it home. And they eat everything except the intestines. They eat them all, including the ears. They cut out the ears and use it as like a souvenir. It's like, wow, this is our life here. And life as a young person is wonderful because as a young person, you can swim all the time, you can jump off the trees all the time, you can play in the water all the time, and it's just wonderful to be able to live in that place there. And they had a way of catching the fish too. The fish could be caught with the Oz tree. The Oz tree, O-S, Oz tree, had a bark that had a funny little white syrup thing inside. That, when you rub it together in the water, it releases this white syrup that stings the fish. And the fish get stung and they immediately jump up. And then the kids and the young people around there go quickly there and then grab the fish. They just literally grab fish right and left. Or sometimes if they're a great warrior, they would stand there and be even smarter and would say, shh, and go. Sometimes they might spear two fish at the same time, go right through. So, just so wonderful. They could do all this, and all in the water there, so much fun. They could even do shrimping. There's shrimps in there too, and all kinds of shrimps. All different kinds of shrimps, some small, some big, some really nice shrimps. And they would catch the shrimp by putting in the sago leaves in there, like a wrapper, like a trap. And inside, they put the sago meat, or put the young sago leaves in there, so it's very juicy, and all the shrimps go in there. And it's like a shrimp trap. And they get, wow, so many shrimps today. So they have plenty of food. God gave them abundance. They have all the trees, all the fruits, all the wonderful things. It's like a Garden of Eden. There's so many things to eat and to work with, and it was so lovely, actually. But as we know, man has a funny way of dealing with things, and so there's evil and things, all kinds that are there. And even in nature, they have to be careful, because sometimes in nature, you walk out there, and there are these blood-sucking leeches that grasp on you, and they hug on you. They grasp on, and they're all over sometimes. Hug them all over. And they have to have to really pull it to get the leech up the body, and then throw it away. And then by that time, the whole foot is full of blood. And another one, throw it out. And then, throw it off. And then those mosquitoes, if you don't have a mosquito net, which most of the people that don't have a mosquito net, they're lying there, and then they can hear this. And they know they've been bitten. And then they get malaria, which makes them so sick. Malaria makes them have this fever that goes so high. And this high fever makes them shake. And they have like tremors, and they go like this, and like this, and like this. And some of them die because the malaria goes right to the brain and kills them. And so Don was there living with them, and he felt that every day, children, young people, men and women were dying from all kinds of things. A lot of times fighting, a lot of times malaria, other illnesses, infections, yaws, all kinds of like weird diseases. And he said, God, I don't have enough time. Give me the language ability so I can learn the language quickly. I can communicate the gospel to them quickly. I need to. Teach me how to learn the language. So he sat down with these people. And he said, teach me how to say your language. And so he found out, this is just like the books say. It's not necessarily a primitive people have a primitive language. They're primitive on the outside, but the language is very complicated. We have a tense like go, went, will go, okay? There are a few tenses like that for a verb. And they have 38 verbs, tenses. Instead of go, went, gone, they have all kinds of things. There's 38 of them. So complicated. This is a reminder to us. And to him, Don says, of course, God was the creator. God gave us all language. Every tribe has a language. Every tribe has a different language. And many tribes have very complicated languages. Even the most primitive tribe, don't think that they have a primitive language. Their language is very, very complicated. And they love poetry. So they see different plants, all have different names. Just like Adam had different names for plants. And different animals, different shrimps, all have different names. Oh, it's so complicated. Oh, Don says, God, give me the ability to learn these languages. It's so difficult. Teach me. I have to learn. And in the middle of this learning exercise, as he's struggling, trying to learn this language, he heard. We heard? What's that going on? I'm sorry. Time's up again.